it's good. It's better than that. It's
better
a
than
really
good.
good movie. And obviously it's a matter of opinion. And if you're the type of person who's like, oh, it's a matter of opinion, my opinion is bad, then yeah, I get it. Like, I understand how you're like, well, I don't like good things, so I didn't like this movie.
Get out of here.
And because I get it. Like, I get it. You're not a good person. You're bad.
They're happy in life. Let
Yeah.
them have it.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. What is up?
Hello.
Welcome to the low ceiling.
I'm Pri.
Yeah. What?
You usually leave
Oh.
with the I'm John, and then I go, I'm
I
the other
wanted
John.
to change it up today.
Okay.
Thought you should say that you're John, and then I'm Pri.
I like that.
Well, I'm Pri.
And I'm John.
Alrighty. Today we're talking about, a good movie. Right off the bat. I'm not going to give it all up
No,
before you buy me dinner, but this is a good movie.
we're not going to listen to the haters. We're not going to look
Fuck
at the
no.
ratings. We're just straight up diving into how goddamn good
And this movie is called The
the
Neon, Demon by Nicholas Winding Refn. First off, I want to say that if you recall our work on Jennifer's Body, and I'm talking to you, Pri,
Mhm.
not the listener, how excited you were about Succubi.
Yes.
This movie's got some real Succubi vibes.
Where? I'm just kidding.
And it's just, we're taking another plunge into the Succuverse
Oh,
with this
the
bad boy.
favorite kind of verse. My God, this movie. I know you have.
Well, let's get it out of the way. This movie came out in 2016. It's directed
Mhm.
by the Danish Nicholas Winding Refn.
That's right.
It was written by him, Polly Stenham, and Mary Laws, two playwrights who I don't know very little about
Mhm.
and could find very little about, to be perfectly honest. It came out. I saw it in theaters. I saw it in May of 2016, I believe.
Oh, you saw it when it came out proper, hey?
Me and the three other people in the theater. Yeah, we were me, those three, and Nicholas Winding Refn. I think were the only people who
Nice.
actually saw this movie in
Yeah.
theaters. And I have a little tidbit about that because it was quite the experience. It was before the Trump era ruined everything for
Yeah.
everyone.
Mm-hmm.
When there was still hope in the world, and you could just make a movie about ladies getting eaten by other ladies. Not in that way,
This girl on girl, but in the worst ways possible. Yeah.
or the best.
Oh well, yeah. The worst is what the scrubs would call it.
So, you had never seen this movie before.
No, this
before I
is the
suggested it.
first time I watched it this week,
Yeah.
and I think I've seen it twice already within the week. And
Yep.
My heart is full with joy.
You liked it.
I
Because
loved it.
you started watching it for the first time. I
That's
was
right.
like, I had a soccer game. I was like, you should watch Neon Demon while I'm out, because we tried to watch them separately.
Mhm.
And I came back and you didn't say anything, but I had to just ask. I was like, well, did you like the movie? And you really liked it, right?
I just gave you my most disgusting, menacing grin, and you were like, "Please stop looking at me that way." And I can't stop it.
Yeah.
I watched a Refn.
So I want to preface a couple things about this episode. One, no promises, but it might go pretty long because I really like this film a lot. The other two is that if you haven't seen this movie, strong content warning. It's pretty graphic and
Yeah.
it's pretty, I would say, surprisingly, and we can talk about this later,
Mm-hmm.
a little disturbing. There's stuff, and I don't say that about a lot of movies.
It is a horror movie, no?
Is it?
In the genre category, where would you place the Neon Demon? Is it a thriller, horror?
I consider it there. I've thought about this for a long time. Maybe it's a good time to talk about it here, but I find that it lives in this other space that isn't horror, and it's not thriller. It's more thriller than horror,
Yeah.
but because people don't have a way to describe it, they just call it a horror movie.
Yeah.
But this movie is not scary.
No,
it's
no,
not
no,
scary at all.
No.
It's very similar to the difference between, we talk about this a lot, but the difference between Hereditary and Midsommar.
Mhm.
Hereditary is scary.
Yes.
Midsommar is not. But
No,
they
it's
call
disturbing.
Midsommar a horror, and I don't really think of it as a horror film.
Mhm.
Because to be horror, in my opinion, it has to be a scary film.
Correct.
And this movie is not scary.
No, it's a thriller, closer to a thriller than it is to
Kind of,
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a romance.
It's a love story.
It's a love story.
About one woman's love for herself.
Self-love.
I mean, some more of that housekeeping stuff, obviously, starring Elle Fanning, Jenna Malone. It's got a little Abby Lee Kershaw, but now
Abby
just
Lee.
Abby Lee. Bella Heathcote,
Mm-hmm.
Keanu Reeves.
Oh my god.
Who doesn't this movie have? It's got Alessandro Nivola.
Ah.
I don't know if I said his name correctly. That's okay. I don't know if it's an O or a or an or an O.
Alex.
He's great.
Yeah.
The old A word, that's what I call him.
That's right. It's better than you calling him by his last name anyway. So
Yeah. I said that this episode would be long because we're going to spend most of the time trying to figure out how to say Alessandro Nivola's name.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, so when this movie came out, it came out to generally polarizing reviews. It's one of those movies that was both booed and applauded at Cannes, I believe, when it came out.
100%.
I read some reviews where some people called it the most offensive film of the year. I read other reviews where they called it a feminist masterwork.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who decides. Why don't you decide? All right, anyway, episode done. No, it was really interesting because when I saw it in theaters, like I said, I was there. There was 3 other people in the theater. There was one person way behind me.
Yeah.
In the back. I was in the front row middle, not front row, but like the good row middle.
Yeah.
And there was a couple in front of me who had clearly just come along because it seemed like they just really liked Keanu Reeves, but didn't seem to know what this movie would be like.
No.
And I have to say that I wasn't really sure what this movie would be like either, because I'd seen Drive and I love Drive.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen Only God Forgives by that point, but I did not like Only God Forgives.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I love Winding Refn's work, but I don't know what this will be like. The couple who sat in front of me were really annoying. They cheered when Keanu Reeves came on screen, and they left very upset at the end.
We're gonna talk about Keanu Reeves later on as
Definitely.
well. But
yeah, but I felt a little glee because the movie is pretty disturbing, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think they did a good job of really expressing how much disturbing stuff is in the film, especially in the latter third.
But they don't have to, right? They don't have to give away anything.
They shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
They shouldn't have to.
And that's what it makes a thriller. Did you experience anyone leaving the cinemas while the movie was going on?
No.
Because a lot of the reviews, the polarizing reviews, are from people who are like, well, this is fucking garbage, or this is very disturbing, and they up and leave in the middle of the movie.
The only time I've ever seen someone leave a theater was during the film A Ghost Story by David Lowery. And they left when Rooney Mara was eating the pie for like 10 minutes. And it was really, I was like, I get it, but this is a good movie. Anyway, not, hey, same year. Same year. Good movie.
It was
year.
me. I left.
Yeah. Good movie year.
The pie got me.
So again, like this movie was like polarized reviews. I loved it when it came out. I loved Drive. I still love Drive. I think Drive is like it's like a masterwork of a specific type of crime cinema.
Perfect. Yes.
And as I've been thinking about this, I rewatched Only God Forgives. I like that movie a lot more the second time I viewed it. I think it's actually pretty fucking great. I actually think, and this is one of my thesis statements about this film, this movie, despite the disturbing aspects, might be the most accessible film Nicholas Winding Refn has ever done. That's not Drive.
For sure.
Because as Winding Refn has gone on, he's become a bit like esoteric.
Okay, true to his middle name, you think?
Yeah, he takes his time.
He takes his goddamn time.
And this movie really fucking moves. It really does, compared to the like languid Copenhagen Cowboy or
Too Old to Die
Too
Young.
Old to Die Young, which we
Mhm.
haven't finished yet and we're in the middle of.
No, but we've
And-
been watching it for 45 days and it's still kind
Yeah,
of
we've only finished episode 2. Actually, we haven't even finished episode 2.
No.
And we've been watching it since 2017 before
Yes.
it came out. But like it's really he's an interesting director, which I want to talk a little bit more about him and people like him.
Yeah.
You know?
His like Refn's movies, what he tries to do is he like holds his audience at arm's length, right? But then even when they're not talking or even when there's no dialogue, there's still a lot of color. There's still a lot of sound. There's all these movements that are happening that makes it seem like it's like moving tapestries. So it's visually arresting even when there is no great dialogue happening, but it's just like exchanging glances.
He's kind of like, I read an interesting review where someone said they were like, it was about Only God Forgives, which someone was like, if David Lynch had made this movie, he would be walking away with a Palme d'Or. But because it's
Yeah.
Nicholas Winding Refn, everyone is like scratching their heads.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really interesting.
great point.
I do think like I like Lynch a lot, but
Yeah.
Winding Refn has a very similar thing going on to David Lynch.
It's so funny you say that because I literally have it written down here. This movie's like David Lynch presents America's Next Top Model, which is such a shame because it should get much more credit than it did.
Yeah, and so like you said, what you said about the color and stuff, we can get this right done off the top, but Natasha Breyer, who did the cinematography,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the most stunning films to look at. Just it's like that was the reason when I was getting ready to leave and you were watching it, I was like sitting there being like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I gotta go, but this is happening right in front of me. It's such a stunning film, and the use of like lights, like literal lights,
Mhm.
and not too much shadow and like brightness and lens flare and all this stuff. It's very, very beautiful.
It's
and,
very
and she did a really
aesthetic.
amazing job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in all the best ways.
In all
Like,
the best ways.
it's unlike many other movies that I see. Like even the first scene when you meet Elle Fanning in the dressing room and she's washing the fake blood off of herself,
Mm-hmm.
and Jenna Malone is standing in the mirror, and it's all lit like bright white light.
Correct.
It's just really weird, like different to see, and it's stunning.
Even when it's striking, it's like whether it's Drive or whether it's this film, beauty is always like front of mind for him, whether it's when it comes to lighting or that aesthetic. All of that is to say that I read somewhere that they call it bisexual lighting, where there's
Really?
a lot of blue, pink, and purple. And you kind of see it in Neon Demon. You see it in the
Yeah.
poster. You see it in Drive. You see it in, I know Blade Runner, the new one, has a lot of bisexual lighting.
It's a little darker though. Blade
It's a
Runner.
little darker, but
There's
it's
so we can't go backwards too much. But in Drive, one of the things that Drive is so what I think is so incredible about Drive, and you can say this about a lot of Winding Refn films though, is that like he has this real aesthetic for violence in the midst of something beautiful.
Yeah.
A scene I always think of in Drive it's so interesting is when he goes into the strip club and he goes backstage, and it's again all these bright dressing room lights and all of these mirrors. So you see all of these women and Ryan Gosling and the guy, and he hits the guy with the hammer and puts him on the ground, and then he's standing over him. There's a shot of him standing with his foot on his chest, and he's holding the hammer by his side, and all of these women are there and in the mirror, and there's all of these lights surrounding him, and the room is totally red except for that. And it's like, it's just, he has such an eye for these like beautiful little moments, right?
Yo, do you know why he uses red so much as opposed to other things? And so I know there's all this like talk of color and all this arresting visual presence, but the maestro of neon resurgence himself, Mr. Refn, is colorblind.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But he still uses color theory in such an incredible way. There's obviously when there's danger or something to, hint at like a bad thing's about to happen, there's lots of red. When there's something neutral, there's lots of white. even in the show Too Old to Die Young, we're now seeing that when someone's about to die, red again or maroon, he obviously picks up on those colors much more than he does on the other softer muted ones. And so his working with the cinematographer and then him just fucking knowing what works.
I had no idea.
It's shocking, isn't it? Yeah.
Because he's like, he has a kind of like a savant like visual eye.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Wow. All right. Wow. Fuck.
That makes it so much better because then you're like relying on sound. You're relying on like just people glancing at each other for 14 minutes before they say 2 sentences between each other, and then you have all these incredible.
Those are
colors
all
that
of the
do
best
it.
scenes of his.
Fucking,
Usually. Like I think that I have this like so I have a couple things that I find throughout his films, especially his bigger films, that he has these like concerns with. If you remember back when we talked about Jarhead, I talked about how like I'm always curious about what directors are subconsciously obsessed with in a way. Sam Mendes, it's this dreamlike stories that turn from physical life into dreams.
Yeah.
Fincher, it's the dangers of obsession, that kind of thing. These are not like well thought out thesis, but this is kind of like how I think of what makes watching movies over and over by these directors really interesting to me.
Yeah.
With Winding Refn, he has this thing about like this beautiful, idyllic, languished kind of thing that are pockmarked by these explosions of violence, and it can be really jarring. But his other obsession that I noticed, especially after watching I keep trying to say Cocaine Cowboy, Copenhagen Cowboy,
Yeah.
which you haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
All of his movies, in a weird way, are about or feature a character who all of a sudden becomes like reveals this extra-worldly power that they have in some way. In Drive, it's Gosling, obviously. He, the guy's a stunt driver and a criminal, but he drives.
Yeah.
But he also smashes people's heads in an elevator and kicks them to death. The Thai cop in Only God Forgives is like this weird otherworldly presence.
Mm-hmm.
And in Copenhagen Cowboy, the main character, Miu, is that as well. I won't spoil it for you because you're going to watch it.
Yeah.
But that's in there, trust me. And coming back to Neon Demon, Elle Fanning has it, but it's not in a violent way. It's that she has this power over everyone who she meets. Do you think because they show the characters as these angelic, kind of nice, sweet little pumpkin pies who then also have like a hammer for a hand? I mean, the Thai cop is not like that.
Oh, okay.
At all.
Okay, that's interesting.
He is like a true villain, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's on
get
that
into the
note,
plot.
like, let's get into the plot of
yeah.
the Neon Demon, because I mean, I could just riff for fucking hours about this fucking movie.
This
awesome.
movie is like if Black Swan swallowed the witch and then regurgitated under the skin.
Yeah. Do you think it's kind of like if Black Swan was made by a filmmaker who could make good movies, or
hey, but like visually, it's still, you can watch the whole movie on mute, no?
Neon Demon?
No, Black Swan.
Yeah, I prefer to. Yeah.
I think mostly that's how it was.
Yeah, I prefer to watch Black Swan on mute and with the picture turned off as well.
Oh, shoot. Why you hating? Why you hating on
it's fucking not a good movie. I maybe I'm being too harsh. Aronofsky is fine, but Black Swan is not his best film.
I agree. I have to agree there.
Yeah, he's made like some good movies, and he's made some great movies like Noah or whatever.
Yeah. And then interestingly, that shit is revered to be, oh my God, what a dark retelling of it. But then Neon Demon is given a loose pass.
Aronofsky's they have similarities, but Aronofsky is certainly a more accessible filmmaker.
True.
Than Winding Refn. I'm not denying that. And also Aronofsky has had more time to have made movies that people consider great. Although Pi fucking sucks and people are still like, oh man, he drills himself in the head, isn't that cool? No, it's not. It's a stupid fucking movie. It sucks ass.
Tell us how you really feel. Damn.
And his most critically acclaimed film, Black Swan, also sucks ass.
Yeah.
It's a dumb
Well,
movie.
like Grey Swan is
hate it.
fucking mediocre.
I
Right.
hate it. I hate that movie so much.
Oh, stop it.
Fucking Mother is better than that shit.
Another one that I gotta. Okay.
Mother's good.
I gotta get
The Wrestler is
into
good.
these. Beauty.
Requiem for a Dream is good. Are we talking enough about Darren Aronofsky?
No, stop
I
it.
didn't know
Back
we
to
were
my
talking
demon.
about this shit.
All the neons.
The
Let's
Neon
do it.
Demon. It opens.
Mhm.
Elle Fanning.
Mm.
Jessie.
Yeah.
She's a young blonde girl.
Yeah.
Young.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's important that we emphasize on
Yeah.
the young. Yeah.
She is on a couch, fucking with blood all over her. She's getting her photography. She's getting photographied
She getting
because she wants to be a
photographied.
model. Also, back up a little bit. This movie opens with the credit sequence in this movie is phenomenal.
Sick.
The music, Cliff Martinez again. Him and Nicholas
Mwah.
Winding Refn have a sweet, sweet love affair and a
I know.
clear understanding of how fucking talented each other are. Cliff
Yeah.
Martinez's music is the best.
I agree.
It's his, in my opinion, best
Mhm.
working relationship is with Winding Refn. He's done other great soundtracks. Contagion is a good example of a really good one. But Cliff Martinez with Winding Refn takes things to like just a whole other
That
amazing
pulsating
level.
beat, and I know
Ugh.
Contagion also kind of touches on that a little
Yeah.
bit, and Contagion's music carries so many fucking powerful scenes, but I fully agree, this movie is absolute best work.
I want to look something up.
Yeah, I'll do it. While you're
Did
looking
you
something
know
up
this
over
is
there.
what I'm looking up?
Yeah.
Did you know that Cliff Martinez used to be in the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
What?
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at.
What?
Yeah. He was a drummer with the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Fuck.
And it's so weird to listen to his music now
Jeez.
in film and be like, man, what a talented guy.
so
to
many
swing
so many
between
gems
genres,
in this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, the whole soundtrack is phenomenal for this film. But anyway, back to the plot. We open up Jessie. She's getting her photograph taken by Carl Glusman of Devs fame.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut away from that into the makeup room where she's removing makeup and she meets Ruby, played by Jenna Malone. Jenna Malone, fucking awesome in this
Jenna
film.
Malone.
Really phenomenal. And even from like that moment on, you can tell that Jessie has like this special captivating power over Ruby.
Yeah.
And as we find out later, Ruby is gay, or as gay as she can. Like, I don't,
Maybe.
it's not really
Sure.
explicit,
No.
but like she's attracted to her, you know, but
Yeah.
also she sees how special she is as like a model,
Mhm.
right?
But is it because she sees her as a model, or does she see her as a very young, very fresh presence that is different from what Ruby has seen so far in LA modeling industry?
Or
I
as
guess.
a meal.
as a tasty,
As a
tasty
little
appetizer.
meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first line of the film is, "Am I staring?" Ruby looks at her and she's like, "Yes, you are staring at me,"
Mhm.
basically. Ruby invites Jessie to a party. They go to this very cool party, like
Oh my
real
God.
neat. There she catches the eye of a bald man played by Desmond Harrington, who we
Mhm.
find out later is Jack, the photographer.
Mm-hmm.
She also, there's this really long scene in the bathroom where she meets Sarah and Gigi, and they talk about how much
Yes.
all the work that Gigi has done,
Oh,
and
I love that bathroom scene so much.
Talk
And
to me
I'm
about
such a sucker for like ladies be talking in bathrooms, you know, but and you're surprised when in a Refn movie there's anyone doing any talking at all. And it's so fucking captivating.
it. Mm-hmm.
It's these two like tall, leggy blondes, just these vision of two women who come in and almost start to surround Jessie as she's just this like naive little lamb coming into this party, in this bathroom, sorry. And then it all kind of begins with them talking about lipstick, right? They're like,
Women are more likely to buy a lipstick named after food or sex.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then leads to a very, very important question. What would your lipstick be called?
Are you food or sex?
Are you food or are you sex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell in the scene that like Sarah, played by Abby Lee, who, the more I watch this movie, this movie doesn't get lauded much for the acting in it. I think Abby Lee does a very good job in this film.
Yeah.
And you can tell how hostile she is right off the bat. What does she say when she's like, what lipstick would you be? And she says, fuck off
Fuck
or something.
off.
Yeah.
What's your lipstick called? Fuck off. And it's just perfect because Sarah's character is just that stone cold bitch.
Yeah. And then I love Bella Heathcote, who's like really nice, but you can tell she's also threatened by Jesse.
Oh, she's
and
all menace.
when she says she's like being nice to her, and then she's like, I heard your parents died. Is that really hard for you?
Oh. And then she's like, my plastic surgeon calls me a bionic woman.
Bionic woman.
And then Jesse says, is that a compliment? So there is like, you kind of, you know that Jesse's this naive little new in town person, but then there is a mean streak that is so subtle.
I think that there's hints in the movie, and you kind of find it out at the end that she knows more than she lets on.
100%.
As she says, skipping ahead a bit, but as she says after the photograph shoot with Jack, she says, I'm not as helpless as I look.
That's right.
And then she gives a monologue at the end where you're like, oh, she like...
It's fully turned.
She gets it.
She gets it.
And also, there's we'll get to it, but there's this something she says to Carl Glusman when they go on their little driving date.
Yeah.
Where she talks about she's like, I'm pretty, and I can make money off of pretty. I can't write. I can't make art, but I'm pretty.
Yeah.
Basically. So in the that bathroom scene, it kind of sets up everything in the film.
I want to come back to the bathroom scene again a little bit because that's one of the first times you kind of draw this comparison of like Mean Girl meets National Geographic, where it's these 3 established women on a prowl, basically, trying to surround this newcomer, Jesse, who's this tiny little helpless little puppy. And that is when you kind of start to notice the colors change in the film. You notice that the sound changes in the film, and then it leads to obviously one of that fantastic line, which is, are you food or are you sex?
Yeah.
Which you see throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Every character is trying to get either fucked or eaten or liked, either as food or as sex. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they return to the party where they watch the Gimp from Pulp Fiction do a dance.
Right, yeah.
There's like, I think that scene is like, I'm a sucker for like strobe light effects. I think they're very cool.
Yeah.
And I really like with the music and the lighting in that scene. I think it's just so, like you said, watching this movie on mute or something is so cool to look at. Just like even that there's a shot with like Jessie in it and she's looking at this person doing this dance and then she looks back at Ruby but the strobe light is like blocking Ruby, and then it comes from one, they like make eye contact, it goes dark, and then it comes up and Ruby is smiling at her. It's like so fucking cool. And it's such a simple little thing you can do.
You keep waiting for like something, oh shit, is something about to happen? Is something gonna happen? And ultimately no, nothing really does. But that tension.
What do you think that scene means?
I think it's like Animals in the Wild to me. It seemed like how in the nighttime you can kind of walk around in the savannah, and depending on what animal you look at, their eyes kind of shine a certain way.
Interesting.
And so to me, it was like finding out that there's like these creepy little things in the tall grass that sometimes make themselves visible, other times not so much. What did you think?
Well, I actually haven't really thought much about it until I just asked you that question. But like, I think there's something to the idea. So on the soundtrack, that song is called Demon Dance. That's a couple of those songs were made by Nicholas Winding Refn's nephew Julian Winding.
Damn.
And his band, and who he does like, I think he makes certain types of music, and he works with Nicholas Winding Refn on certain songs that Cliff Martinez doesn't do. So every once in a while you look at NWR's soundtracks and there's like a Julian Refn song on it, and you're like, oh, I think that's his nephew's song. So that song is called Demon Dance, and there's something to the idea that the person is like featureless and they're watching this art show by a person who has no features.
Yeah.
And there's also, I know I saw this on like some other website. I think it was like a conspiracy theory website, to be honest.
Oh, good rabbit
But it
hole
was
to
like
go
how
into.
that person, they do this like when they're bent over backwards, it's in reference to this art piece that I didn't read much further, but it's in reference to this like art sculpture that looks just like that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I didn't look too much into it because the website was also like, this is why the Hollywood elites eat people.
You're going to get put on some kind of list for
Yeah.
staying on that website.
I'm
for too
already
long.
on a list.
Yeah, you got to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Your library checkout list is it's dangerous. You're dangerous, man.
So from there, from the demon dance, we cut to Jessie going back to her hotel,
Yes.
where we meet her landlord,
Played by
Big K.
the one and only Keanu fucking Reeves.
Keanu Reeves playing a fucking great asshole in this
Oh.
film. Just such a dick.
He's so much more than a dick.
Yeah.
He's a seedy creep.
Yeah.
He's possibly a pedophile, or they hint at it,
So,
or we are meant to think it.
maybe I want to come back to that a little
Okay.
bit. But one thing I love about, okay, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go on a little tangent here.
Yeah.
Some parts of this movie remind me a lot of the work of Bret Easton Ellis a little bit. Have you ever read anything by
I
him?
have. Yeah.
So have you read American Psycho?
Yes.
That is not like a lot of his work.
Mm-hmm.
So he has lots of stuff based in LA, right? And I've read most of his books. And one book it really reminds me of is this book of short stories called The Informers, which was made into a much derided film that we could talk about eventually. And The Informers has all of these interesting, it's like all of these interconnected short stories, sort of, but they're all very depraved and creepy and fucked up.
Yeah.
And Winding Refn has this way of always like, all of his crime stuff, it always hints at something much darker. And instead of people who are just like, oh, I sell drugs, it's also like, oh, I have a 13-year-old girl in a hotel room too.
And
It always like goes one layer into very, very dark stuff. And this book by Bret Easton Ellis also has that to it. Like there's a story that I remember very, very vividly, which is really disturbing, about this guy, this drug dealer comes to one of the guys he sells to's house. He just shows up with a 12-year-old kid
Mm-hmm.
and says, I need somewhere to keep him. And then just stays at this guy's house with this 12-year-old kid.
Oh, jeez.
And it's like, it's really, really
Ugh.
fucked up. And it kind of reminded me of this, like, this really dark LA underbelly kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, The Informers, which makes me think of this movie a lot, there is all of these references to vampires living in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah. Succubus Lord.
Yeah. And there is actually a story from the point of view of a vampire, like who's actually a cannibal living in, Anyway, I read that book so many years ago. I might be getting all that wrong. But this part really reminds me of that kind
Very
of like,
cool.
And Keanu, it's like, when you first meet him, you're like, oh, he's just a fucking asshole slumlord.
Yeah.
And then later you're like, oh boy.
But then I refuse to believe that he would have cast Keanu, and he fucking Refn pulled a switcheroo, man. The whole time I'm like, Keanu's gonna be the White Knight. Keanu's gonna be the guy who saves the day. Keanu's gonna be the good guy motel owner who's gonna protect this 15-year-old going on 16, our sweet Jessie, who's brand new to LA. And he does none of it. He's just a guy disconnected from anyone else's fucking reality.
I think he has this, like, he kind of represents like that the harsh world will just take from you.
Yeah.
You know.
He's the alcoholic dad. He's the angry uncle. He's the
And he'll find any way to
Yeah.
to scam you out of money,
totally.
you know. Yeah, like we meet Keanu as the landlord, and then we kind of cut later to Christina Hendricks.
That's right.
Maybe we're getting the order mixed up. Whatever.
Well, either way.
Anyway, she goes, we cut, and we find a little cameo by Christina Hendricks. Obviously, she liked working on Drive with Nicholas Winding Refn. She pops up in this. She's a modeling agent.
She's phenomenal.
She's
man.
wonderful. She's got a little role. The part where she walks out and there's the two girls and she just looks at them and she's like, you can go. She's very precise and very perfect. So we meet Christina Hendricks and she basically gives Jessie the lowdown on the modeling industry and is like, you know, how old are you? Tell them you're 19.
Yeah. She does. Does she ask how old are you? I think she
I
does.
think she does.
She does,
yeah.
and then immediately answers for her and say you're 19.
18's too on the nose.
Yeah.
And then Jesse says, no one's going to believe that. And she says, people believe what they're told.
And it's just the most. She's in the scene for maybe 5 minutes. Less, right? And then she just.
Yeah.
It's also a part of the problem in LA, Maine, modeling LA, led by Christina Hendricks. Fucking smashes it. So.
Yeah. Also, this is where we find out Jesse's parents are not around.
Yes.
They're dead, I assume, is what I'm assuming. She fakes their signature back at the hotel. So she fakes her signature. Carl Glusman comes and picks her up for a date. They drive up to the Hollywood Hills.
An older than Jesse guy. I would imagine he's
he's a young in this. I think he's a young guy, but he's not 16.
He's got to be 20 at least.
Yeah, something like that. He's trying to make it as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
They drive him to the Hollywood Hills. Jesse has a sweet little monologue here.
Something about the moon and I'm a gal from Georgia or whatever they talk about. But ultimately, you kind of see that Jesse's photographer boyfriend really is just an ineffectual sap. The guy, to me, he doesn't do much. I feel like they could have done without him in the movie altogether. But I can understand why they wanted to keep a nice guy around for Jesse to play with.
This scene is very. It has to be here, but it's kind of my least favorite little bit of the film.
Yeah.
But it really it moves the plot from B to C kind of, and Carl Glusman's character does some interesting things as we see later, but he does get shunted off later in the film because Jesse rejects him. Essentially, she changes. Yeah, as we'll get to.
And I, for one, am glad, because fuck that guy. He's so boring. Go get that other photographer, Jesse. You girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight. That's it.
He's no Alessandro Nivolo.
He's no Alex and
Novolo.
Yep.
Certainly not. So we return to the hotel, and Jesse goes to her room and finds that there's something in there. And they go back and they bust in and they find that it's a cougar.
Mountain lion? Yeah.
Mountain lion.
There you go.
As they call it in some parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
A wild cat.
And there are some things about this movie that are dumb. Okay? And let me preface this by saying it's okay to have some things that are obvious, some things that are explicit. This particular scene feels more like subtext made text, because they're going, oh, there's a predator in a young girl's room and it's a literal fucking mountain lion.
Do you think that? Because something I wanted to I was like gonna ask is like, what do you think the wildcat imagery means?
That is 100% a predator analogy. Like, now she's new in town in a fucking motel, and now there's a wild animal, and that's not the only time we see it. Literally 5 minutes later, you see on someone's mantle there's a puma, and then in a few scenes later there's a cheetah. Behind Ruby there's a fucking wolf.
There's a leopard. There's a leopard behind Ruby.
Yeah, and it's like constant like showing of there's big cats in this small town.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I mean, not to compare a classic film to this in such a positive way, but like in The Exorcist, there's Pazuzu doesn't just like zap into the girl. Like, there is stuff, you hear the things in the attic, and there is like a physical manifestation of the demon, right? And well, I don't know if this movie has like a literal demon in it. This is kind of like, is the wildcat like a antagonist to Jesse, or is the wildcat a representative of Jesse? Right?
I think the wildcat is Ruby. Don't you? You don't
think?
Wow. It's the older model who's going to take you under her wing.
She's a wild cat.
Well, either way, whether it's meant to be her enemy or whether it's meant to be her, like a harbinger of her future self, it's so kind of annoyingly on the nose for me that it takes me out of the ethereal quality of the film itself, or like, maybe they leave it to my imagination, but like you said, this movie, Neon Demon, is Refn's more accessible film. So I think he has to be a little bit on the nose with some of the things. Yeah.
I mean, you're wrong, and it fucks. And
You're such a fanboy.
it's
I can be
awesome.
critical and be in love, okay?
I don't know. I like that scene a lot just because it's so, honestly, it's just surprising. Like, it's so when you're like,
Yeah.
when the cat jumps, you're like, what the fuck is
I
going
fucking
on?
laughed out loud, man.
And then it cuts, and then it just cuts away.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what did the dude from Breaking Bad just beat it to death with a, like, what happened to the cat? What did it do? Did
It
Keanu
ran
Reeves fucking break its neck or something?
Keanu John Wicked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't kill my dog.
Don't kill my dog.
Make 3 movies about me. So yeah, so we, as I said, we hard cut away from that scene into the photo shoot, which is
Yeah.
visually just fucking arresting.
Is this the first photo shoot?
Yeah, with
Oh,
Jack. And so
talk
so
about
basically like Jack, she comes to get a photo shoot with this guy who's a famous and just like obtuse artist photographer guy who looks like he just got out of jail.
I love that guy. He's
Yeah.
fucking great, man. He's just all stone,
He-
no emotion. Take your clothes off. It's picture time.
It's like he's serious, like to the point of just like he's so rough edged
Yeah.
and stuff. And so anyway, you can tell he's like captivated by her. He
Yeah.
closes the set. He gets her to take her clothes off, and
Mhm.
he paints her with gold and photographers her.
He doesn't just paint her with gold. There is some. The reason why that scene is awkward is because obviously he clears the set. It's just him and this young girl, and then he takes a handful of gold paint and smears it on her body with his hand.
Yeah.
Right. So there's never any talk of like, oh, assault,
Consent?
or rape, or 100% that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is awkward and terrible for all of these reasons, because it's not made obvious as an assault or whatever, and for the fact that Jesse just takes it at face level, like, oh yeah, I guess it's all part of the industry.
Yeah, like by joining this industry, it's like you've given blanket consent
Yeah.
to do what you want with
Like
your body.
a prey would to a predator. Like they showed fucking 5 scenes. Like, that's what you see what I mean? Like every few minutes, they show that there's all these dangers in the world, but really it's you allowing yourself to not do anything about it because you're a child and you don't know any better.
Yeah, but like isn't her Jesse's journey, it's like about flipping the prey predator dynamic a little bit, right?
True.
The ultimate, like her ultimate defeat. This is Jesse to me, we're getting into this pretty early, but like Jesse to me, she's not really, it's not like she's the hero of the film.
No.
She's a hero who's going into a descent. And the only way that people can get rid of this influence on the
Yeah.
world is by completely eating her. And even then, in death, she comes back to haunt someone.
Yeah.
You know?
There is some fallout to her descent.
Yeah.
Right. There is some stuff that happens later. Anyway, well, let's go.
Yeah, and
Or-
I think that like that part, so she gets it's a really disturbing scene. She gets painted, she gets photographed. Why can't I say photographed? I cannot. I just like
She
it doesn't work on
photographed
my
her.
fucking mouth. It's terrible. So and then she leaves and Ruby's there and Ruby says like, I don't think you should be alone with him. Like he's got a reputation.
Yeah.
And that's where she says, I'm not as hopeless as I look, right?
Mhm.
So from there we find out we go to the restaurant with where Ruby meets Sarah and Gigi.
Yes.
And,
Another
um,
excellent scene.
That scene is basically just like Ruby is like she's special. There's
Mhm.
something about her. And then we also find out somewhere at some point Ruby also is a mortician. She does makeup for dead bodies.
Yes.
Comes up later. And then we bounce right from there into another fucking great scene with Nivola. Nivola is a fashion designer,
Yeah.
and they're all of these women are standing around doing the model walk for him.
fantastic.
Again, another like this is the payment in the industry kind of thing, is like all of these ladies are just sitting around and you can see Sarah is like fucking daggering Jesse with her eyes.
Yeah, man.
And Sarah gets basically brushed off, and Jesse captivates Alessandro Nivola, like right then and there.
The way they kind of show Jesse coming into the room and owning it without really trying. And then this fashion designer, this little bitchy guy, he's just moved to tears almost at this purity and this virginal quality of this young child in his mix, who's obviously going to be this showstopper.
It's a good thing he has that pocket square that he's fucking around with to dab his teared eyes. His little Nivola is so weird, and his little like
He's
behavior he decides
weird.
to do is just like, why don't I play with this little pocket square napkin? Like, what is he doing?
I think that is where that Danish sense of humor of reference kind of comes in. There's all these little small, weird, goofy, funny moments that maybe don't translate to an American audience or a different kind of audience.
But
That's what makes it great.
There are definitely funny moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Because of how weird and how it can ping pong between seriousness and funny
Like
bits.
the brevity of it. Yeah.
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 So Sarah is obviously distraught at this, and she smashes a mirror in the bathroom, and Jesse goes to comfort her, and Jesse cuts her hand, and Sarah tries to drink the blood from her hand. And there's this like incredible shot when Jesse backs away and Sarah's like on all fours, and she looks up and her face is covered in blood.
Yes.
It's so interesting.
Fantastic.
And that's the other thing. Fuck this movie, man. That's another part where I remember when I first saw it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? You know? And I mean, call me naive, but I was like, I don't know where this is going or why these things are happening.
Right.
You know?
I think that was my first kind of, is this more literal or is this going to be metaphorical? Is this going to be like these women, or are they witches?
Yeah.
Are they vampires, or is it just modeling? All of that to say that, preying on this young girl, wanting to drink her blood to stay young and beautiful, is done so quickly, but also so well that it doesn't matter if they're vampires. It doesn't matter if they're real women. They're fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
That's what makes it great.
I think one of the faults that people have who criticize this film is that like you don't have to take everything at such a literal face value, you know?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be. This might be controversial to say, but even I think that when people are trying to be like, oh, this movie is about the horrible treatment of women in the modeling in blah blah blah, I'm like, those themes are there, but it's really not that. I don't think it was ever meant to be that clear or be a movie with a message that's so black and white.
Yeah.
I think that like there's certainly those themes, and there's certainly a kind of like meta narrative about like beauty.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that maybe we can talk about, but like when it's like so what are they, vampires or are they witches? It's like it doesn't matter. What are they? What is a vampire? What is a witch? And are they either of those? Who cares? It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So back to the old plot. Jessie goes back to the hotel. She passes out from her wound. Carl shows up and helps her. There's this moment when she passes out and she sees these triangles, the neon triangles, essentially. And then there's this other fucking, I love this shot with the hands pushing through the wallpaper.
Oh, yeah.
So cool.
Very nice.
And then, so Carl helps clean her up, and then he goes and talks to Keanu Reeves and says, like, I heard she owes you money, blah, blah, blah. And Keanu Reeves is like, just give me whatever money you have.
It's going to be $200.
And then, crucially, he brings up, he's like, there's a 13-year-old girl in the room beside her.
Keanu brings this up.
Yeah, it's fucking creepy.
Keanu Reeves, sweetest, gentlest angel of a man, says, you want to see some real Lolita shit?
Real Lolita shit. Oh, that is like, it's so creepy and great actor.
Just fucking
But
yeah,
and his also like, so Carl Glusman is disgusted by this, right?
Yes.
But also I love Keanu Reeves just like so you're grossed out. I don't give a fuck.
No, but also, isn't it kind of hinting at that? Yeah, but you're kind of in a room with a 15, 16-year-old girl right now, my guy. So it's a little bit like, yeah, you want to really lean into this shit? There's a 13-year-old right next to her.
Yeah.
So I think it was cool that he brought it up. He showed the hypocrisy of this nice guy who's supposedly hanging out with Jesse, even though he's a fucking sap. Dull, my guy. Fucking die already.
So from there, basically, we go to the fashion show, and Nivola's fashion show.
Yeah.
Where he decides Jesse's going to end the show, obviously, because she's the neonist, demonist of them all.
Oh, so good.
So this scene, in my academic reading of this scene, and you can tell me what you think. I want to know what you think, actually. So the way I see the scene is like, this is where she gives herself over to evil in a little way, like to be a little plain about it, but like, this is where she decides, in a weird way, she gives herself over to herself.
Mm-hmm.
The way she kisses the mirrors and all this stuff. And the reason I feel this way is, I want to get into a little theory I've had. This movie, and I've seen it written about in other places, or people have commented on it. There's like triangles all over this film.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Some very prominent ones in this scene, obviously, but also Gigi is wearing a triangle necklace in the bathroom scene.
Mm-hmm.
You might notice it's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but Christina Hendricks is wearing a necklace of all triangles.
Oh, very cool. I totally missed it.
They're just Gigi at the end, spoiler alert, when she dies, is sitting at the bottom of a triangle shaped couch.
Oh.
So it's all of these like, and the way I see that is that like Ruby, Sarah, and Gigi are this coven of people.
Yeah.
And Jesse has ended up in the middle of it.
Perfect.
And when we go to this show, there are 4 triangles and one in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse is shown in the middle of one triangle. And it's like she's come to disrupt the lives of these people who things were going so well for before.
So good.
And so that's what
God.
that's my triangle theory. That's not super fleshed out, but that's kind of how I see it. And
yeah.
this scene is like the total fucking, what's the word for it? It's just like she's giving herself over to it.
It's a transformation of Jesse, right?
Yeah. And there's no like plot to it. There's nothing explicit about it. It's just, this is like a representation of that act, kind of.
And you know that again with the color, bam, it shifts to red.
Yeah.
As soon as the triangles come on, there's this imagery of Jesse in 3 different lights, almost looking menacing in every single one of them. And then she obviously, like you said, turns to her own reflection and kisses herself, fully giving into that narcissism, right?
And also too, so she's in the back room and she's getting ready, and Nivola says, "You're going to close the show." Mm-hmm. She goes out to quote unquote close the show, but it's not like wherever, like, it's not like a catwalk. It's not a runway.
No.
There's no crowd. It's kind of like, you're like, what show are we at? What show is this?
Maybe that was just a visual representation of her mind.
That's what I mean is that's where it's like, you don't need to be like,
yeah, you don't need to see the show.
You don't need the director or the writers. They don't need to be like, she's now entered her mind space.
No.
And it's just like very like, you transcend it in a way.
It's just so fucking well done.
It's really cool.
And then just her kind of going into this triangle and fully transforming into this, shit butterfly that's very evil. It's a girl boss butterfly now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as we see in the next scene, she's at the bar and she opens the curtain and she's very different.
Sorry, I'm laughing. Okay, I'm sorry. It's another one of those very quick 1-second transformations from sweet angel baby to sex whore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking so fast.
Yeah.
In her deep cut glitter glamazon dress.
Speaking of fucking on the nose, like this is pretty fucking on the nose.
Yeah.
But, and that like goes straight into, she goes with Carl, they go into the bar. Alessandro Nivola is giving a monologue, a Shakespearean monologue to these 2 other women. And then Nivola gives this other monologue about beauty, natural beauty being superior to the bionic woman, basically. Mm-hmm. And he says one of the best lines in the film, that beauty isn't everything, it's the only thing.
That's right.
Which I think is brilliant.
Ugh.
And then the second best line in the film, when Dean
Dean
introduces himself, he's like, "Your name's Bean."
No, it's Dean. Okay. that humor again, right? It's just so good, and it's just fleeting. It's tossed away.
But the way Navolo delivers that line is like he's genuinely curious. He's like, "Your name's Bean?"
There's this like earnest look in his eye where he's and then they're surrounded by these incredibly gorgeous women, and this motherfucker's like, "Your name's Bean?" It was unexpected, and it fucking got me, and it was great.
Yeah.
So far, Jessie has been this sweet angel baby who is now obviously a bad bitch, right? So at this point, you see that turn from prey to predator, kind of.
Definitely.
All of the innocence is somewhat gone, and now she's going to be this bad bitch. So, and before all this has happened, or maybe not, has the Keanu scene happened just
You're
yet?
sticking
And
your
I'm
finger in your
mouthing.
mouth.
Yeah, I'm trying.
No, it's about to come up.
Okay,
and
okay.
we'll
I'll wait.
talk about
I'll
it,
wait
yeah.
for that.
I
then.
think too that like this bar scene is really interesting because now when you said that this theme we've been talking about, this switch from prey to predator, is like even Navolo as the fashion designer, he's like talking about her superiority as like a natural woman, and it's like almost like he's like, I work with different tools than what you have.
Yeah.
And she has now like transcended him.
Yeah.
In a way, and it's like you're too beautiful, you're too effervescent to really exist in a world where someone like Gigi is normal.
Right.
You know, it's really interesting. It's a really good scene.
You know why it's also interesting to me is that there's all these women in the room, and yet he asks some guy named Bean, "Yo, what do you think beauty is?"
Yeah.
Because he's just like one other man, and all right, we're gonna, objectify these women together and be like, "Look at this hot bitch. You think she's hot?" And he says, "I don't know. She's fine. She's fine, my guy. She is
right in front of her,
stunning,
too.
right in front of her.
Yeah.
In
Bella
front of
Heathcote is beautiful.
supermodel. This
Yeah.
fucking. Also, Bella Heathcote and Abby Lee's character Sarah are objectively, obviously, smoking hot,
Yeah.
even more than Jessie, right? Not just in the context of the movie. Generally, I feel like Elle Fanning is more of a childlike,
There's
more innocent.
Elle Fanning. I love Elle Fanning as an actress. She's a really talented actress. She does good shit.
Yeah.
Not just this movie, but there is work to be done. Elle Fanning is beautiful.
Yeah.
But she isn't really quite a
She's
model.
not a hottie. You can't
But
convince me
there-
she's a sex
There's
object.
that's the thing. There's work to be done to make the viewer believe that other people believe this.
Right.
No offense to Elle Fanning or anything like that, but this is what I mean. This is why I thought of it as like she has an otherworldly power.
Right.
And it's not just because she has a fucking cute little face.
Correct.
It's something
Yeah.
else about her that infects people.
It's
right?
the purity and innocence, right? It's the
It's like
the
it's
virginal quality.
It's the joining of all of these certain things,
Right.
and then there's a certain je ne sais quoi that people just can't explain. And because like you look at Navolo when he first meets her, it's like he's like shocked. He's like, oh my god, I can't believe this
like he's
person is
seen
in front
God
of me.
himself.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's it. Is that there is that purity and innocence, etc. But there is that mean streak that is so subtle
Yeah.
that it's almost alluring and sexual, and that's why when Jessie opens the curtains and comes out in her super V-neck drapey glitter dress,
Triangle.
it's like, oh shit, that triangle's upside down.
Damn.
Damn.
So from there, Jessie goes back to her hotel.
Mhm.
And this is probably my favorite like sequence in the entire movie. It's incredibly disturbing. But so she goes back to her hotel and she falls asleep. And when she wakes, Keanu is standing over her with a pocket knife, trying to shove it into her mouth.
Gently.
Gently, in a very sexual manner, trying to gingerly stick this knife in
Wider.
between her
Mm-hmm.
teeth without cutting her, and tells her wider. And she wakes up from this nightmare. And
Oh, thank God it was a dream all along.
yeah. And then someone is trying to get into her room. She locks the door. And then she hears this person break into the room next door and assault the young lady there. And there's a shot of her leaning against the wallpaper, just her silhouette. It's amazing. This scene I find really disturbing.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, because I'm not sure if I've worked it out, but who do you think does break into the room? Who is that? Because it could be Keanu, though I don't think it is.
Yep.
It could also be Carl.
I don't
Right?
know if it is Carl, but I definitely think because I don't think Carl is courageous enough to assault. I think he's still a coward and maybe too much of a soft boy. Whether or not it's Keanu or Carl or some other guy, I first thought that she was still in her dream state. She wakes up thinking that Keanu is trying to assault her with a knife, and then hears all this other assault happening in the room next to her so badly that I don't want it to be Keanu. I'm going to say maybe it's Carl. Let it be fucking Carl. But it could just be some guy. It is a seedy motel. And it was like also foreshadowing that Keanu was like, oh, if you leave the window open, there's going to be predators coming in. Another thing with this movie, with all these like masculine figures who are supposed to be the threat, there's Keanu with a knife. There's possibly Carl, nice guy, Gaslight. There's the photographer who has his hands all over her body to paint her gold. It is still ultimately all these other women who end up being the predators for Jesse.
Yeah.
But we're going to come down to closer to the end of the line to talk more about this. You take it. I know you got something to say here, yeah.
The girl next door gets attacked. Jesse calls Ruby for safety, and she says, come to my creepy ass vampire mansion.
My vampire lair.
Come to my vampire's lair. Jesse goes, and basically Ruby tries to seduce her. She finally just has to get her grubby little hands all over this girl.
Yeah. It's also very quickly done, right?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, are you sad? Bam, pounce right on top of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ruby tries to do it. Jesse rejects her. And then Ruby bounces off to her job
as a cadaver
and
painter.
This is where so the scene with Keanu and the woman being attacked next door.
Yes.
This is one of the rare films where I think it actually starts to get better as it goes towards the end.
Yes.
I think the ending, the climax, and the wrap up is all part of the better parts of the movie.
100%.
But this next scene is the one that's disturbing, right? It's a scene of necrophilia.
That's the divisive scene.
Yeah. Ruby has sex with this dead woman, basically. It's very explicit.
Does she have sex with the dead woman?
Well, you said you had something about this, so I want you to get it going.
I know because, and this is the scene that had a lot of people leaving the theaters, right? Obviously, Ruby is rejected by Jesse in the scene before, and so she's sad, she's distraught. She comes back to her job wanting to paint this corpse, right? Whatever they do in the industry. And it is absolutely bananas scene. Because she obviously takes off the sheet and you see a naked woman laying there. There's stitch marks. Obviously her body's been
she's
sewed
like
back
had an
up.
autopsy.
Yeah, you can practically smell the formaldehyde through the scene.
Yeah.
And what happens between Ruby and his corpse is, now look, I'm a simple girl. I don't have anything.
I like trucks.
I don't have
and
anything
bacon.
invested in necrophilia. Okay, this is when it comes to this is where I think the film is a horror film. This is where I think it transcends from that thriller into a horror, because most of the time people in horror films, let's say men, get to do all the depraved, bonkers, fucking buck wild, incredible, interesting shit, and no one bats an eye. But the fact that Ruby is climbing on top, fully clothed, and then just touches herself while kissing a corpse is so weird to see that it's beautiful because it's a woman doing it, but it's still disgusting for the viewer. So Ruby's pleasure is not like for our consumption. Right? It's not for us to be like, oh yeah, it's just necrophilia is feminism, guys. But maybe it is. Maybe it is meant to show that it's okay for a woman to do equally depraved fucking bonkers shit because it is a horror.
There is some, so referencing back to our episode on Jennifer's Body, I believe that I said that there's something refreshing about a woman who's a villain who likes being the villain.
Hell yeah.
And
yeah.
although with Jennifer's Body, in contrast to this film, it's like, okay, this lady can do fucked up shit as long as she does it in a sexy way.
Yeah.
And Ruby doing this I mean, I found this scene pretty disturbing when I first saw it, and I've seen some disturbing films, like as Juno, as we said, was haunting. But like, you're right that it's like, it's harder, I think, to accept for people because it's like
not a positive role for a woman to be playing this.
It's a depraved role. It's not even just like this woman has problems. It's not like monster.
No.
It's like really, really, it's like the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
That you can think of on like a societal level.
Yeah. But that's what makes it fantastic, don't you think? Because it is so dispassionate.
But it's also kind of like the realm reserved for movies that people shouldn't admit are like fun and good.
Yeah.
Like for example, like the there's this horror movie I watched recently, it's just like a horrible, gross film called The Girl Next Door. Not the one we chatted about with Alicia Cuthbert, but it's like it's about it's like based on a true story about this mom who like kept this teenage girl in her basement and got all of the neighborhood kids to like torture her and stuff. And the mom in this movie is like just awful and just like, and it's like those roles, like women do not really play them that often in a way that it's like non-redemptive. And in this movie, I don't think Ruby gets a redemption very much. Like she, as we'll get on to, she just carries on with her life.
She does.
You know?
She walks into the scene as this like pathetic excuse of a woman who is so, like you said, depraved and sad and just wants to do what she wants to do. And it makes the viewer uncomfortable because it is horrific and because it is this like almost fantastical nightmare scene that would never happen in real life.
I gotta say, I've never seen a scene like this on film ever.
And you don't, and you hardly get to see necrophilia for good reason shown in any way, and nor should it be. But then fucking Neon Demon happens, right? It gives you this like very interesting character like Ruby, who is good at her job, maybe too good in this one, who is fairly influential where she lives, but then has to do all of these things like assault a fucking dead body. It is that for sure. She does do that. But then the scene is also about like a woman finding pleasure in a way that is disgusting for someone else. But fuck you, who cares? It is great for her. Yeah. And that's what's fucking awesome about it. And that is why necrophilia is feminism. Thank you. That is, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
One of the reviews I read by a person who is like, this movie is offensive and bad. What they said that like it's a little offensive to kind of be like, so this woman who's ostensibly gay can't get what she wants from Jesse, so she goes and has sex with a corpse. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I guess that is the most simplistic way of viewing it, and that, I guess that is offensive. But that's not like, I don't think that's making a comment about like gay culture or anything like that.
Is it worse than when a man gets rejected by a woman and then goes and has sex with another woman forcibly? Fuck no. But this movie lets this woman, Ruby, thrive in her debauchery.
I think you're onto something with how uncomfortable maybe viewers are with the idea of a woman, like you said, who good at her job, well liked. Jenna Malone is a beautiful woman doing something that is really at the bottom rung of horribleness in film, you know? Like it's even in something, I saw a comparison to, I forget the fucking Italian guy's name, but there's this really disturbing movie called Salò that don't watch it ever. anyone. Okay. It's an Italian movie and it involves a lot of scatological stuff and assault and violence. And there's this like woman involved in it but she doesn't really take part. She's just the showman of the whole thing. Yeah. And in this movie, it's different because this woman is like taking part in it. You're
Deep
really
in it.
seeing it, and
Yeah.
it's jolting, and it's disturbing, and disturbing for good reason. Whether it's for disturbing sake or whether Winding Refn had another intention for it. Like the movie, I don't know. I'm not someone who thinks like something should ever be off limits, but it's really rough to watch. I still find it really rough to watch.
And like a lot of people have said the same thing, right? Is it necessary? Is it necessary to have a scene where she touches a corpse? Is it necessary to have a scene where there's like a mountain lion? No, but nothing is fucking necessary. But like, this movie is not some thoughtful documentary on the fashion industry as a meat grinder that eats up young girls and spits out these husks. No, it's like, it's meant to be observant, right? It's meant to make you uncomfortable enough to leave you feeling some type of way. And that feeling should be discussed. And it's shown so well. No one goes, oh yeah, there was a sweet little romance.
Yeah.
No, like, we know damn well that like Refn's characters don't talk for more than 2 sentences. But then all the necessary emotions are like drawn from just 2 people making eye contact or one woman climbing on top of a corpse.
There is something that Refn has this streak of depicting people who you don't. Keanu Reeves is a good example in this movie, who you don't necessarily think of as bad people doing pretty bad things.
Yeah.
However, someone like Ryan Gosling in Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Gosling in Drive Gosling's one of the most beautiful men on earth, and he's stomping a guy to death in an elevator and doing all this stuff to protect someone, but at the same time you're just like, he's incredibly violent. And like, the idea of it being like necessary is like,
come on.
right? Well, it's not my favorite argument about like any film, because it's like, oh well, the movie still exists, so what are we talking about necessary? Should we go back in time and fucking not make the film? Like, you can't. In my opinion, it's not criticism to ask for a different film than the one you're criticizing.
It's like
you just have to talk about the film that exists.
Totally.
And I like necessary. No, he didn't ever have to make any movie.
No.
Nicholas Winding Refn didn't ever have to become a director. He could have been a fucking construction worker or a tarot card reader, like whatever. But
are you glad it exists?
I am. And,
Fuck yeah,
and of
right?
course I am.
Exactly.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
But he does have this thing throughout his movies where it's like, you have these people who are shot beautifully, look beautiful, and do horrible, despicable
depraved things. Yeah.
This might be the most depraved,
Mm-hmm.
but you're right about it's like movies aren't here to constantly invoke feelings of like, oh, I feel so
Positive
warm inside.
shit. Yeah.
If you want, like, go watch fucking Up. Like, you know what I mean?
It's like complaining that the Antichrist doesn't have a moral messaging.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
What are you watching?
Like, certain movies are allowed to exist in a subgenre that aren't meant to make you feel fucking warm and fuzzy. And this is one of them. And that's
in their genre, they thrive.
I understand if people get disturbed by it. I understand if it's not for them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't watch it. That's fine. I fucking told you at the top of this podcast not to watch it. So
And
I'm getting really incensed. Like, I don't like the idea Woods like or shoulds in the world of art is a little bit like, well,
why are you
nobody
handcuffing?
should do anything as long as it's not hurtful or hateful. You know what I mean?
100%. Like, it is glitter horror, right? It's going to be full of bloody metaphors, right? It's, even at its worst, it's such an earnest attempt at something that is disturbing and yet beautiful. And it's something that lingers in your mind. And when you leave the theaters, don't you want something to stay with you?
100%.
And this movie fucking knocks it out of the park with all of those parameters, right?
And it only gets better from here.
It only gets better from here, man.
But it is a little bit like, also too, like, it's sometimes it's like disingenuous when you hear reviewers being like, oh, this is offensive, and it's like, well, the movie isn't saying like, isn't necrophilia not so bad? It's like, no, this is disturbing. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's annoying when you're like, are you dumb? Are you playing dumb just for the sake of, because you don't know what to write? Like, that gets really frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough about that. We're gonna heavily edit what we just said, I'm sure.
I don't know. What
Okay.
are you talking about? But leaving that in. It's a commentary on feminism. It's for my girls out here. Yeah.
So back to the plot. Ruby returns to the mansion,
Yeah.
and Jessie is there, and she stands on the diving board, and she gives a phenomenal monologue.
Mm-hmm.
A monologue that didn't truly strike me the first time I saw it, but in recent rewatches, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, I really love this monologue that she gives. But too
What
bad.
does she say? Do you remember what she says?
That's the thing. I don't quite remember what she says, but I remember she says something about like, it's very, very pompous, and she's like women cut and slice and yada yada just to look even close,
Like a
little
second-rate
bit like
version
me,
of me.
second-rate version of me.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the term.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
So good.
But too bad for her, because when she enters the house, Gigi and Sarah, they're chasing her around.
The Maudlin sisters.
And then eventually they chase her back to the pool,
Mhm.
and there's not to toot my own horn,
It's
but
an empty pool. That's important.
it's an empty pool.
Yes.
They chase her back to the pool, not to toot my own horn, but as she walks towards the pool,
Yeah.
she stands in the middle of a triangle of the three women.
Oh shit!
And
I
then
didn't notice that.
Ruby pushes her off the pool into the empty pool, where she breaks her legs and
Her
head
everything. Yeah.
and lies there and stares up at the stars as she dies.
Bleeds
And
out.
she looks over and sees them walking towards her as she passes out.
Not only do they walk towards her, but that fucking scene is my absolute favorite scene. So these three women descend to the bottom of that empty pool in a catwalk,
Yeah.
and they're blurry. They're in a distance, but it's so beautiful the way they walk down, almost like fucking hyenas coming down to quite literally eat the shit out of this girl. And I know, like, Refn has been argued to be like this fetishist filmmaker who, oh yeah, there's gonna be blood and gore. Oh, they're gonna eat this girl. Like, who am I gonna? What? I'm not gonna kink shame. Sometimes you gotta eat a bitch. Like, she out here laying all tasty
As
looking.
you said, I mean, there's lots of connections to Jennifer's body here, but girls got to eat.
Girls gotta
Girls
eat.
gotta eat.
Yeah.
The little scene after that, I really think is amazing, when you cut to Ruby is lying in the tub just caked in blood.
Yes.
And the two Gigi and Sarah are in the shower.
Yeah.
This is like some metalhead has this tattooed all over their whole
I know.
back. Just two vampire ladies covered in blood, nude in a shower.
like Dracula's brides, no? They're like,
Very much so.
like Van Helsing
But it's also
bitches.
just like kind of like it's this weird balance between like, okay, there's these two beautiful naked women
yeah.
covered in blood,
Yes.
showering together.
Yeah.
Like
Eating
it's
entrails of
it's this
whatever. Yeah.
weird like it's a weird juxtaposition of violence and beauty.
Yeah.
And just but also just like Ruby sitting in the tub and just looking. I kind of when I watch that scene, I'm kind of like, for an actor, I don't know a lot about acting on film or being an actor whatsoever, but like, wouldn't that be fun to go to work and be like, oh, they're gonna cake me in blood makeup and I gotta sit in a
Yeah.
tub and get some it would be kind of fun. you
I mean,
know?
again, it comes back to the are you food or are you sex, right? And then
Yeah.
they're obviously these women have always been sex, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously Jessie is the food who gets eaten up. And a lot of the criticism for that scene where Gigi and Sarah are bathing together in blood is that it's basically porn. It's just these women and their tits, and
It's
the camera
porn.
lingers
It's porn
too
to someone.
long. It's got to be someone's fetish. That dude's probably in the minority, or lady, I don't know. But to me, like, immediately, sex was not the first thing that I thought of. I was like, they're just eating.
Yeah.
They're just hanging out, getting a meal.
It's not I wouldn't call it a sexy scene.
Not at all,
whatsoever. Yeah.
right? And so that to me was surprising, when a lot of the criticism is like,
I think though,
so reductive.
I think that, so going back to the necrophilia scene though, I think that one of the points of this film is like making a movie about models that's so unsexy.
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's aesthetically pleasing, but it could not be less sexy. It is so not.
No.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like the necrophilia scene plays into that. This scene plays into that. And then you see,
you said a thing earlier, which is really good, where that it doesn't matter if they're vampires. It doesn't matter if these women are witches. What they're doing is they're obsessed with this like singular beauty, and whether it's by her virginity or her innocence or whatever, but when they realize they cannot have it, they they just destroy it and they consume it, and that's it.
Well,
And that is the truth.
There's a there's kind of like a reference that like it keeps them young and beautiful.
True.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And like so the next little bit is like this montage of Ruby lounging around the mansion,
Yeah.
shirtless. She's got a bunch of tattoos.
Occult tattoos, no?
Occult I didn't really I
Did you catch that?
not really.
There's
no.
a bunch of like I think it was like a ram's head.
Okay.
But like a goat. Like there's like obviously the triangle is everywhere kind of.
Yeah. I guess I could have looked like paused and kind of studied it more. But she's smoking weed, she's cleaning up, she's spraying away the remains.
She is fully sprawled across
One sec.
Oh yeah.
There's a amazing scene where she's just lying in a empty grave smoking weed and these
Yeah.
flowers are all around her.
So beautiful.
It's really beautiful. And then then she lies on the floor and blood pours out of her.
Yeah.
And
in
I
a
don't know
moonlit
what
night.
that means.
I mean, it kind of seemed like she was either giving birth or this is the completion of the transformation. They're all obviously, if you want to be very on the nose, they're part of a coven. The witches have now eaten and come into their full form. And maybe it's indicating birth of like a new year, new me, new Ruby.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love, witch style. Love it.
Yeah, and so from there, that's the last we see of Ruby, the last we see of Jessie.
Yeah.
The last sequence is Sarah and Gigi head off to a photo shoot down
Brilliant.
the coast, the California coast,
Yes.
with Jack. A really weird, very fashiony photo shoot, and this wonderful conversation between Sarah and this other girl where she asks her, has a girl ever screwed you out of a job, and what do you do about it? And she says, I ate her.
I ate her.
It's so good.
So good.
And then as we see, that really helped Sarah because Jack fires the
Yeah.
other lady and gravitates towards her.
Mm-hmm.
And then this ending, I think it's one of the best endings,
Wow.
maybe of the decade.
Tell me what happens.
So I want to go through it like pretty closely.
Yeah.
They're standing in front of the ocean doing this photo shoot and in front of a pool.
Mhm.
And Gigi can't stop coughing or gagging. And she has to stop, and she runs away into this house, takes off all of her stuff, and Sarah follows her to help her ostensibly. And Gigi collapses down on this couch, and she says to Sarah, I have to get her out of me, and throws up an eyeball onto the carpet.
Wow.
And then says, I have to get her out of me, and she cuts her own stomach open with scissors and dies.
Kills herself. Yep.
Sarah in shock a little bit, but maybe not.
Is she in shock?
Maybe.
Yeah.
She kneels down, she takes the eyeball, and
Don't
she
do it. Don't do it.
eats
don't do
it
it.
and
This
and
begins the gentle
heads back.
esophageal descent of a human eyeball into Sarah's mouth.
And that is the end of the film, except for the credit sequence with a Sia song that absolutely fucks. You didn't love it when I saw this movie with that song super fucking loud.
Oh my God.
It's so dramatic and over the top and just so goofy and like fits perfectly. It's so perfect.
It's fucking great. Do you have any theories about who that woman is who's walking in the desert?
Jessie, it's gotta be.
It's got to be.
It's gotta be Elle Fanning.
Oh,
yeah,
all
yeah.
blonde, eh? Or
I
like
don't
dirty
know,
blonde?
but I don't know what the credit sequence is meant to
Me neither.
show.
Yeah. Anyone listening, please, I don't know,
Yeah.
tell us, because what the? Who
It's
knows?
really cool though.
I thought it might still be Sarah, because
Yeah.
she's the only. No, she's not the only witch standing there.
It's
is Ruby.
clearly Elle Fanning's hair,
Hmm.
curly,
Yeah.
wavy hair.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it means. I have no clue.
It's just chandelier.
That ending, I love it. I think it's so
Yes.
fucking perfect. I think it's like this beautiful little chef kiss cap on a perfectly disturbing half hour of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately it's, I don't know, like I can't say anything other than how perfect it is. It's so great.
One of my favorite reviews I've read of this movie and I don't know what whether it's good or bad, but it says, "Refn, you absolute fucking crab." That's it. And I think that sums up this movie quite perfectly. It's just you go in expecting one thing, you're just mind blown with what you get. The sound is incredible. The lights are, oh my god, just on a whole other level. And then even without saying so many words, there's so much powerful acting stuff, man.
I have a hard time deciding whether I like this movie more than Drive. And the reason is because like Drive is like another impeccably made kind of just I love Drive so much, but Drive is pretty fucking straightforward. Straight down the line. This movie has it has more going for it. Whether you think that or not, I don't really care. But this movie definitely has more to it that I think about more often.
Totally.
Like Drive is like I want to have a good night and just watch something.
Yeah.
And Neon Demon is like I want to think about something else. You know, like
I want to look at weird
film.
shit.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is more accessible, right? This doesn't leave too much to the
not as accessible as Drive. Drive is like pretty accessible.
You know, now I don't even remember too much of Drive.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
I gotta watch it again.
Yeah.
You
Drive is like a fucking cold beer on a
and
hot
he
day.
Refn doesn't even know how to drive.
Yeah, that was something I read.
This dude can't drive. He can't fucking see colors, and he's like, "I'm gonna make two of the greatest films that'll blow your dick off."
Yeah,
good job.
This I don't know. Neon Demon might be one of my favorite movies of that decade. Maybe.
Of that genre, I think. Especially like in France, it was a fucking huge hit.
Yeah, Cahiers du Cinema named it third best of 2016 because they fucking know what's good.
You know the French are fucking. The French can make croissants, and then they can have just blanket access to
French know what's up.
That's culture, baby. You ready for my top 5?
Actually, no.
Oh shit!
I have more that I want to talk more.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about Refn a little bit as a filmmaker.
Hit me.
So first off, like, I want to shout out my friend Chris, who helped me like think of this idea.
Hey, Chris.
Something I thought about a lot with him, and I've thought about for years, but never really put down, was like, Refn is this specific type of filmmaker, and there's not very many like him, but there's a good handful that fall in this category of they make like very singular works of their own that you can always only be like, that's a Refn movie. Yeah. No one else can really make that.
Yeah.
And they have this kind of, it seems at least, like this concern with style over plot, substance, character, whatever, which is, you know, results may vary on your mileage with that. But so I want to talk about other filmmakers like that because they kind of, a lot of them end up making my favorite movies.
Yeah. Do you think people like it because they know going in what they're going to get? Oh, this director makes X type of movies. I'm already a fan of X, so I will like these next 5 movies that they make.
Yeah. And I think that like they're definitely like specific tastes, you know, like you have to be, like you said, you have to be in a mood for this type of movie.
Correct.
So what I want to say is like the parameters I thought of for these types of movies. So, they're filmmakers who broke out in the 2000s, so not the 90s.
Nice.
So that eliminates some filmmakers you might hear me talk about. But they make mid-budget movies. They don't make blockbusters. Indie to mid-budget films. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they seem more concerned with style over substance, although I think that's up for debate. Like how, you know, like just because people have a different idea of what is substance than you doesn't mean it's bad.
Totally.
They often work with like underground subcultures and like the crime thing that Nicholas Winding Refn kind of deals with. And they often work with like pretty big actors doing weird shit. So the biggest, I think the biggest, although you can argue about how different or similar they are, Steve McQueen is a really good example of this.
Oh, that's a solid one. You
know, like working with someone like Fassbender in the character roles, but also his stylistic choices. And I mean, spoiler alert, Steve McQueen is one of my favorite filmmakers. He is, I mean, talk about a fucking cold beer on a warm day. His movies like wash over me in this way that it's just like, I can't believe someone is this talented, you know? as I've said many times, we have to watch Widows because that movie fucking rules.
Yeah. Well, I'm bummed I can't catch it on the big screen, and it's coming out in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, we're at the VIF Theater.
The theater, baby.
The other one I thought about. Oh, the other thing too. The age range, they're about mid 40s to late 50s.
The directors?
Yeah, these directors.
Okay.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
Like pretty similar, has lots of similarities
Oh,
with NWR. Bennett Miller, he made Foxcatcher
oh my god, I
Capote
love Foxcatcher.
and Moneyball.
Steve Carell.
Yeah. But you know,
Damn.
you see what I'm getting
Oh
at?
my gosh. Yeah, they're slow burners.
A little. And then as we've talked about before, Karen Kusama, maybe not with Jennifer's Body,
Right.
but definitely with The Invitation
Ooh.
and Destroyer, which we watched together. Remember, like they have that stylistic crime grit to them, you know. Joe
So
Wright is
tight.
another one. Joe Wright, although Joe Wright his concern with beauty overrides his sense of griminess at times.
Which one are you thinking of?
Well, Joe Wright's stylistic choices in something like Atonement or Hannah,
Mm-hmm.
which are the two movies I'm most familiar with, like his stuff like Pride and Prejudice, I'm just not a fan of that kind of work. I couldn't finish Anna Karenina.
Mm-hmm.
But like that kind of thing, like those stylistic choices I find really similar.
Incredible.
The other one, Lynn Ramsey, You Were Never Really Here. That movie absolutely is like steering in a similar lane to something like Drive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's even dirtier.
Oh, that movie makes me so uncomfortable.
Another one, Jennifer Kent,
Mm-hmm.
The Nightingale, the movie
Yeah.
that we absolutely both loved. And the another one, although kinda, Deborah Granick. She made Leave No Trace and Winter's Bone. They're these like kind of
Oh.
stylish indie movies. She's a phenomenal filmmaker.
Damn.
Yeah, and so like he's part of this. Do you see what I'm getting at though? These like mid-level filmmakers.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then almost always revert, right? Like they're always considered to have done such a fantastic piece of work, but then
You see these guys and you're like, I don't ever want them to make a movie that they didn't 100% want to make.
exactly.
You like whenever I hear of like it's disappointing when you hear rumors that don't come true, but whenever I hear someone be like, yeah, like Yorgos Lanthimos is working on this, I'm just like, fucking I am there. That fucking guy. And McQueen, I'll watch I love Steve McQueen so much. And like I know McQueen could fucking take a story about the blanket on my bed right now and make it amazing. Like, he's an incredible director.
I'm thinking of one more name, and maybe this is not going to make your list, but like Taylor Sheridan's Wind River, in terms of like discomfort.
A little bit, except Sheridan's more of a writer. And so here's the thing. Another director who you could argue would be in this group is Villeneuve, but Villeneuve makes massive films.
True.
But if Villeneuve, if we were talking about this just like post Sicario, you would be like, Villeneuve is definitely on this list. Because as Sicario is like this, Prisoners is really like this. And Incendies is a fucking amazing movie. But he makes his movies are too big. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like they're similar qualities, but I'm like the mid-budget, these
More
like
blockbuster.
mid-budget kind of things, less
Right.
than like big Dune.
Yeah.
Once he made Blade Runner, he kind of disqualified himself from this.
You know, I love to watch movies on my phone in bed.
Yeah.
Under a bedsheet, right?
Yeah.
So Dune and, Sicario. Maybe these are not ones that I would reserve for a small screen, but like Incendies or
Oh yeah.
all the names that you've mentioned, just perfect for having a phone as close to my eye as possible as I consume the cinema.
Another one that is kind of like fringe on this list, especially recently, is Alex Garland, because
Yeah.
but my kind of hesitance was that like, well, he's made mostly like sci-fi.
Yeah.
But he made Men.
I mean, Neon Demon
that's
is the sci-fi of men. Wouldn't you say it was the sex machina of our times? They've
Men is the
annihilated-
Avengers Endgame of Garland films.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, so I just had these like I had this idea kind of floating around in my mind. I don't know what I want to say about it.
No, but
it's my favorite type of filmmaker that we have today.
Yeah.
And much like the Neon Demon, they're kind of unclassifiable in what they do, you know, in a way that like Scorsese, you know, people remember Scorsese for his crime films, but Scorsese has worked in like every fucking genre.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, they don't really have a genre that they work in that you can pin them down to. That's what makes them so interesting. And part of what's so tantalizing about them is that you can't really expect what they're going to do next.
No.
But whatever they're going to do next is exciting.
Yeah, like it's the same feeling that was evoked with like Suspiria, for example, or with and this one I haven't seen, but I'm so curious to see Raw, and you were telling me about it with the
yeah. Well,
we won't say much, but
Julia Ducournau was sorry to the French people on my list, I can't say her name. Julia Ducournau, she was on this list, but she's quite young. She's in her 30s. She made Titan as well, and Titan is fucking beautiful. Raw is a movie that's like, don't watch this if you're uncomfortable around anything. It's a fucking wild ass movie, but an amazing film, like a wonderful movie. She's an incredibly talented. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, and the other one too. Speaking of French peeps, Celine Sciamma, who did what's it called? Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I'm not as familiar with her other work, but that movie is kind of like in this zone, you know, where she is doing this kind of like character piece that's very stylistic. And yeah, she's awesome. It's Celine Sciamma.
Shout out to my girl Namra if she's listening, because she told me to watch this a long time ago, and I thought it might be, knowing nothing about it because I'm such a pleb, I thought it'd be like a Pride and Prejudice type film.
No, it's
and
good.
It's such a
so good.
departure from that. So
I saw it in theaters just before the pandemic. Really good movie. Yeah, and so with Refn, you kind of like, it's like you always have 50% of an idea of what you're gonna get with him.
Yeah,
that's how I felt when I watched Copenhagen Cowboy, and then the rest is honestly surprise. Like I'm always delightfully surprised with what he fucking puts out, you know. Because
like, what about Hollywood is subtle, like, right? What about fucking LA is subtle? That why should his movies be subtle? Yeah. If he's talking about the industry, if he's talking about what he's talking about, it's also gonna be fucking bananas.
Also, like, if you don't, it's good because it's like, if you don't want that, you don't have to have it. No one's making you watch this. It's not stuff,
necessary, you know? To watch it.
Yeah. All right. I'm ready for the top 5.
Oh, okay. Today's top 5 is it's brought to you by One Note. No.
It's brought to you by the Hulu show High Fidelity.
I'm doing top 5 good guys who could have played Keanu Reeves' part as a creepy, seedy, disgusting, gross motel
But I know
owner.
who number 1 is. Woody Allen.
Hey, I said
good
creepy.
Guys. Good. Oh,
okay, yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna include some special mentions at the end of this. But let me just start with number 5. Number 5, Rick Moranis. Just walking into the motel. Do you do a Rick Moranis impression?
No, I haven't watched a Rick Moranis feature since I was 10. Yeah.
Honey, I ate the kids. It's just gonna be him walking around this dark ass shitty motel, trying to fix all the windows, grumpy. I think Rick Moranis could have easily usurped Keanu in this role. Number 4, Orlando Bloom. But he is in costume from Lord of the Rings the whole time. So what? You're looking at me like I've said something absurd. He's the nicest guy.
He would have just shot that cougar right in with his bow.
Exactly.
His Legolas bow.
Oh my god.
He would have choked it with his hair.
He would get that fucking stupid ass mountain lion so fast.
Yeah.
Movie over.
Yeah.
Predator dead. Number 3, John Goodman. Now, John Goodman has played convincing villains, right?
Yeah.
He can be
Inside Llewyn
a
Davis.
menacing bad guy. But I was split between John Goodman and Tom Hanks. And I know Tom Hanks can do a bad guy role. Like, he's in The Lady Killers. I think somewhere in Cloud Atlas he's a bad guy. But between him and John
Forrest
Goodman,
Gump, he's the enemy of the state of American
Forrest Gump.
history. Yeah.
it's just
Stop
hating
this
on the
man
sugar
traveling
industry.
through history.
Exactly. So I
Can't
think
you
I
get a
think
job?
between the two of them, definitely Mr. Goodman stands out.
Yeah.
As a number one.
He would be a great creepy seedy hotel.
He would
owner,
be.
Actually.
Yeah,
He
fuck.
might
Maybe
be too good at it.
He might be
Yeah.
too good. You know what? I gotta take him out. I think Tom Hanks, Tom Gunn, Top Hanks is back in this. Number 2, you ready? Macaulay Culkin, baby. Yeah. Home Alone.
I noticed
not
you
anymore.
picked 2 actors who don't really perform anymore.
I know, which is because they retired their good guy role and now they're just like typecast into these,
Rick Moranis is like, if I don't start playing villains, I'm retiring.
Yeah. Macaulay should come in, kick the shit out of his brother, and outdo him in Succession as the worst bad guy.
I mean, Roman is already the worst bad guy.
Yeah,
Such
but
a
like, you don't
shit.
think his older brother could fucking kick the shit out of him? That'd be great.
Yeah,
to
probably.
watch.
Probably.
But yeah, that brings me to our number 1 bad guy.
Woody Allen.
No, who could? And now imagine this person standing over Elle Fanning's body, sticking a knife into her open mouth, going wider, open wider, and the camera pans back up to Betty White. The whole time she's saying whiter instead.
Okay. All right.
What? You think this movie got less weird? I think I made it more normal.
Top nothing over here. God.
Hey, I was going to do a top 5 of foods that are better than sex, but I feel like all foods really for me because I'm hungry all the time. So, all right. I put your mom's Nanaimo bar on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Special
qualifies.
mention.
Yeah.
Special mention for a good guy actor, Dumbledore.
He's not an actor. He's a fictional character.
What?
Which Dumbledore? Richard Harris?
The first one. Yeah.
Richard Harris.
Number 1 Dumbledore.
He's dead.
Yeah, but so is Betty White, dude. Wait, is she? Yeah, she
Yeah,
is.
Betty White's dead.
Oh, sorry.
Hardcore dead.
Hardcore,
Yeah.
pretty dead.
She got ate by the other Golden Girls.
She's the bottom of the triangle now.
Yeah.
Love you, B. Yeah.
This movie
Damn.
rules.
This movie fucking rules.
Yeah.
I'm happy I watched
I'm happy we
it.
talked about it. Also, this movie is one that I immediately, thinking of this idea in its nascent phase for this show, this was the first movie I was kind of like, these are the types of movies I want to talk about. Because, like we said, this movie has middling reviews, polarizing reviews.
Yeah. 58%? 55%?
Something low.
Hella low like that.
And it's good. It's better than that. It's
better
a
than
really
good.
good movie. And obviously it's a matter of opinion. And if you're the type of person who's like, oh, it's a matter of opinion, my opinion is bad, then yeah, I get it. Like, I understand how you're like, well, I don't like good things, so I didn't like this movie.
Get out of here.
And because I get it. Like, I get it. You're not a good person.
Yeah,
you have bad
they're
opinions.
happy in life. Let
Yeah.
them have it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm,
Reffin.
I felt I finished Cocaine
Cowboys.
Copenhagen
Copenhagen.
Cowboy, and I was like, we got to do Reffin. I was so jazzed on it. I was
I'm
like, I gotta
so
fucking
pumped
do
to
it.
go watch the CC and report back.
Yeah.
Tell you how I feel about it. Reffin, you fucking crab.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you for listening to this breathless talk about this fucking movie.
God, I fucking love you, dude.
God damn.
Bye.
Bye.